When I was in Denmark during the summer in 2014, one of the coaches was kind of noticed that I was holding the bat really tightly, and what they had me do was to just release those fingers and to then try and play only holding the bat with these two fingers and with these just sticking out in the air. And I found that really difficult because I'd never really had like a strong pinch on the bat or any kind of grip with the fingers, so it kind of felt like I wasn't holding the bat at all because I was missing all of this bit in my palm. So I was really keen in January when I started practicing again to try and work this out, and I had a kind of all of January and all of February and a little bit of March even kind of faffing around trying to work out what I wanted to do. I tried a lot of different things out, some worked, some didn't work, and I really just wanted to share some of the lessons that I learned with you so that hopefully you don't make the same mistakes and you can kind of pick up a few of the interesting things that I worked out and apply it to your own games. So one thing I noticed is that kind of we talk about this grip like it's the handshake grip. And when I think of a handshake, you know, if I was to go and handshake someone, I'm doing it very much like that. There's very little going on with your thumb and your index finger. No, it's more kind of this area of your hand that's doing the squeezing. Kind of in many ways, the Shakehands grip is more like a limp handshake. It's hard to do because I've only got one right and one left hand, but they're kind of giving you a handshake like this, and this is very much using this kind of pinchy grip, so the thumb and the index finger instead of the lower part. It's what you see a lot of the top Chinese players doing now, is it looks like they've got slightly more of a backhand grip, and they're definitely applying the pressure with the thumb and the index finger and the top of the hand, and these fingers are very, very loose, so that you can see that on some shots they're barely touching the blade at all. Odd ones might be sticking up. Something else I realised that's quite interesting is that, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this on the video camera, but the way that you hold the bat actually changes the muscles that's being used in your forearm. So I'll try and show you what I mean here. If I go back to kind of this new grip that I've been working on, and I'm pinching this really tight, this is still quite squishy. There's not so much going on here. What's tense is this upper part of your arm. My wrist feels a bit more free. If I go back to this grip, now this is rock hard now. There's a big difference in what's going on with your arm, and that's going to affect how much you can use your wrist and how much you can use your fingers to generate that extra bit of spin on the ball. And in Denmark I saw a lot of players on their forehand, and the coaches were advising this too, actually using wrist. So that they're playing with their arm and their elbow, and they're adding a little wrist flick as well. And as far as I can tell, that's only really possible if you're using more of this pinch grip. People often talk about holding the bat loosely, but the problem with holding the bat loosely is that if you hold it really loose, like it's just going to slip out of your hand. And this was something that Sam often struggled to understand. You know, how can he hold the bat looser? And he was trying to hold the bat loosely, but still doing it primarily with this part of his hand, which then kind of feels like you haven't really got any control over the bat at all. Whereas if you're actually able to be very, very loose with this part of your hand, with the lower part, but yet have kind of a firmish grip with the thumb and the index finger, then I think that's probably what people mean when they say to hold the bat loose. I was also kind of messing around with exactly where my index finger should be. So I looked at a lot of photos of top players, and it seems like their index finger isn't going off the side of the bat at all. I was trying to work out why that was, because as far as I could tell, you know, my hands aren't particularly big, I don't have massive fingers. So why is it that my fingers are constantly either sticking off the edge of the bat, or I'm having to stick them right up here? So one thing I noticed was that what I was doing before, which was kind of that, with my finger up here, meant that it was kind of a bit of a straight line going along my knuckles. What I noticed that a lot of players are doing is that it's almost as if this knuckle here is right over this side, like that, but then this bottom knuckle is kind of round the other side, and they've actually got more of a diagonal line, and from there you can see that the hand is actually a bit more curved. What else did I try? So I had times where I was putting my thumb way too high up in the bat. That didn't really work. The problem with that is that you've got one finger kind of going this way, got the thumb kind of sticking up, so they're not really working together. I was particularly trying to get this part of my thumb kind of putting pressure onto that part of my index finger, whereas very much before all the pressure from my index finger was going into the point, whereas now I'm kind of like using this bit a bit more, and that's kind of helping me to get a bit more feeling. So one thing with not, especially at the start, with not using these fingers to kind of wrap around the handle so tightly, it meant that I could kind of feel the back wiggling around a bit more than usual. I wasn't sure whether maybe it'd be better if I could kind of slot the handle into this kind of natural line that it makes down the middle of your hand. But I spent one session where I was trying to play kind of like with that in there. That didn't really work at all, so I think I went straight back to just having it down there. So I guess one of the problems that I had with all of this was that I've been playing forehands for a long time with this kind of like palm grip, thumb quite low down, finger comes up onto the bat, and that kind of naturally closes the bat angle for me on my forehand. Now what I'm doing now, which is here, makes the bat angle considerably more open. So I found that I've been sending a lot of forehands off the end of the table, and I really just need to work on this switching backhand, forehand, actually making a big change with my wrist, whether my wrist is up for the backhand and down for the forehand. Whereas before, I think my massive grip change, it was doing a lot of the twisting for me, so I didn't need to actually rotate my arm so much. And the other thing about this forehand grip is, what you'll see is that, I don't know if you can see that, but this part of my finger isn't really touching the bat. So there's a little bit of a gap kind of between my finger. My knuckle is kind of on top of the blade instead of being here on top of the rubber. Well, that's something that I realised was a problem. It's important that the whole finger, the whole index finger, is in contact with the rubber. Actually, it's okay to be slightly round on the forehand, slightly round on the backhand, as long as you're using this pinch grip and your fingers are actually doing the work. When I was in Denmark, some of the guys were finding me quite hard to play against because I had this grip which meant I could do these really big fades down the line, which was catching them out. But then everything that came to my backhand after this big fade is just going to be kind of that. And I think I've found that I've been really passive in games, and I think a lot of that is down to my grip, because if I haven't got the grip for a backhand topspin, then I'm going to end up having to play this kind of shot because I'm not in a good position to spin the ball because I've got this stupid grip. So I think grip is a real fundamental that it's worth sorting out, and I think it was definitely worth spending the time on it. And I think what I've noticed is that, you know, loads of players, even all the Chinese players that look similar in the way that they play, you know, they've all got slight variations in their grip. Some a bit more backhand, some more neutral, some are holding it lower down. You know, some top international players have quite strange grips. But they kind of make it work for them. So you can make any grip work for you if you choose it for a particular reason, and then you kind of build your game around it. But there are certainly things that are going to help, and I think the main thing is to be loose grip. And that's something that I've said for a long time, but I haven't actually fully understood, and I feel like now I'm starting to understand what a loose grip means. And it means not squeezing so hard with these three fingers, not using all of this kind of muscle in the bottom of your hand and then tensing up all of your forearm, but instead just being relaxed, holding it with your fingers, your thumb and your index finger, and then you can use that, and it's going to help relax your wrist, relax your arm. That's going to bring down your shoulders and just help you to play a much more relaxed game. I just say don't worry about it too much, try and be loose, have a think about this kind of finger thing, so trying to keep your index finger flat on the bat, trying to use some kind of pinch between your thumb and your index finger to give yourself a bit more control. And I think this is all really important in the modern game, where we see a lot more backhand play, you know, especially flicking and kind of backhand open-ups, players standing a lot more in the centre of the table, receiving with the backhand, actually using both wings equally. And this kind of grip where you've got a little bit more feeling, a little bit more ability to use the wrist and the fingers to generate spin on these small shots is really the way to go. I'm pleased that I've done it, and you know, I'll keep working on it. I feel now like I'm not messing around as much. I'm just kind of getting used to what I need to do to adapt to this grip, like closing the angle on the forehand so that I'm not shooting everything off the end. but it will probably be a long process before I'm completely used to using this grip. But I know that when I get it right, it feels really good, and it feels a lot better than it used to. So I'm going to stick with it, and hopefully it will pay off. So I hope that you found that interesting. I tried to cut this down so that it's not too waffly and I kind of get to the point. But yeah, grip is one of those key fundamental things that you need to sort out and make sure you're comfortable with. And I hope this has helped you kind of think about that a bit more. So thanks for watching. ExpertTableTennis.com is the place to go to read all of my blog posts and everything else that I'm up to. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, I'd love it if you could do that too. Cool, thank you, and see you later.